Good afternoon, everybody. Charles Moscowitz here. People who know me know that one of the things that I do, among other things like author books and do podcasting and I write insurance policies, is I drive Uber and Lyft, and I love doing it. I've learned a lot from people and had great conversations. And recently, actually yesterday, I had in the car two young women who are students at Boston University, right near where I happen to live. And as is my habit occasionally, if someone is open to it, I got into a conversation with them about what they're doing over at the college. And they mentioned to me that they're in the Department of Media, and they were outraged, angry, that a conservative club had invited Ben Shapiro to speak at the college, and that the college was spending an enormous amount of money on security for this event, money that should go to other things, they say. Now, the fact that the college would have to spend so much money on security for Ben Shapiro is an interesting subject in and of itself, but what interested me about these two young women, and of course I did not reveal my own political thinking, I was more interested in sort of learning from them, is that they insisted that he be drummed off the campus, that this event should not be allowed to happen, that he be purged, basically, and that their reasoning for that was he doesn't represent the values that we believe that we support. In other words, because they don't agree with him, and that therefore he can't be heard. And then they mentioned that the organization that's sponsoring Ben Shapiro, Young Americans for Freedom, which I mentioned to them is a pretty old group in colleges. I didn't even know they still existed. They go back to the 1960s. They were founded by William F. Buckley Jr. That the head of this group was a woman, and they were speculating on her ethnic background. Is she white, or is she minority? How can we stop her? And, is this really what colleges have come down to now? That they don't want to just have a debate. Do they want to have everyone goose-stepping along with the left only on the campus? The answer to that, of course, is yes. And that anyone who opposes them, they take a look at their race. First of all, these two women, from appearances, were about as white as a roll of toilet paper. Putting that aside, is this really something that matters? Is this what this country, are we going to have a racial identity litmus test? Someone has to be of a certain category now? I heard of this young, I'll give you an example of where people are so desperate now to be affiliated with some kind of a minority status so that they're not to appear as white. There's this guy in New York who is very so-called progressive, who has decided that because he has a Jewish background, he's decided he's going to wear a yarmulke in public. All right? Not because he's suddenly discovered God or he's religious, but because he wants to affiliate with some kind of something that would make him appear to be something other than white. And there's speculation on how he'll be treated now, and he wants to stand out. But is that really what we've come down to in this society, that everybody has to, that someone who is a minority in some fashion is to get preferential treatment? I can understand that it is. This is the greatest virtue. This is why Elizabeth Warren claimed to be a Native American, because she wanted to glom onto that which was most fashionable and most helpful to her benefit. Plus, she financially benefited from it by getting tenure at various colleges. That's at Harvard, and a job at UPenn, but that's another subject. The point I'm making is, what's interesting to me is these two young women. And I did make one comment to them. I said, look, you're studying journalism. Why don't you challenge Ben Shapiro? Send him a questionnaire. Send them 3 questions and ask them to answer them. No, they don't want to do that. It wouldn't even occur to them to do that. They don't even think in those terms. Everything is how to expunge the opposition, how to stop it, how to end it, how to make it so it doesn't exist. The only world that functions is this narrow and undefined world that they live in. And that their values, I would have loved to ask, what values are those? I don't think they have values. It's all based on treating other people well. Okay, fine. Not to discriminate, not to be prejudiced, not to be racist. Okay, I get that. But that doesn't answer the more fundamental question, which is, what do you positively actually stand for, if anything? The answer to that is nothing, and they don't know because they've never looked within. It's all like this sort of game of power. They don't have any particular convictions. It's all reaction. And maybe that's perhaps what our education system has come down to now, that opinions that disagree with some vague set of principles which are not identified, even in their own minds, that has to be purged because it might undercut or somehow threaten the existence of this intellectual straitjacket that they exist in. Let me just conclude by pointing to a brief article I saw the other day. I don't know the name of the poll, but they did a poll of college-age students and college students. And one of the things that came out of this poll was that about 45% of students believe that hate crimes should be put into the Constitution and should be criminal. Now, I mean, this shows a complete ignorance of the nature of our constitutional system. And putting that aside in a philosophic sense, from a practical level, who gets to decide what is a hate crime? I'll leave it at that. Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me, everybody.